Prime Video and Amazon MGM Studios released a first look at their upcoming Fallout TV series adaptation, and the pictures actually look really good. Unfortunately, the comments we got from the show's creator, Jonathan Nolan, raise a number of red flags, specifically that they're going to be injecting a lot of modern social commentary into the show. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. With that out of the way, let's get into this here. I wrote this article up at thatparkplace.com. Headline reads Prime Video's Fallout TV creators confirm show will feature heavy social commentary, wants to sidestep binary thinking on good and evil. Prime Video's Fallout creators, the husband and wife team of Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, confirmed the video game adaptation will feature heavy social commentary. Speaking about the upcoming series with Vanity Fair's Anthony Bresnikan, Nolan said the games are about the culture of division and haves and have nots that unfortunately have only gotten more and more acute in this country and around the world over the last decades. We get to talk about that in a wonderful speculative fiction way. I think we're all looking at the world and going, God, things seem to be heading in a very, very frightening direction. So, very clearly going to be injecting modern politics and social commentary into the show, trying to do it in a quote, wonderful speculative fiction way. Huge red flag. Anytime someone tries to do this, it is usually does not turn out very well, and audiences quickly flee it. We saw that with The Rings of Power, another Prime Video offering that lost almost 60% of its audience from before it even finished out the first season. Specifically, the series will provide commentary on people's morals and will do so through the character of Lucy, a vault dweller played by Ella Purnell. First, Nolan detailed so many of us have such naive ideas even now about everyone else's experiences, and it's one of the things I love about America is this giant manic collection of different experiences, different points of view. So I'm going to disagree with what he has to say there about the United States of America. I think that this might only be true in the past 20 to 30 years. I think before that, America was pretty aligned on their experiences and their points of view. It's not until the past 20 or 30 years where there's just been like a bunch of craziness and chaos within the United States, where we have all these kind of crazy, insane points of view and people like just going at each other and having all these contradictions and differing points of view. He then went on to explain how the show will use Lucy to moralize to viewers, this vault dweller. He says Lucy is charming and plucky and strong, and then you see she's confronted with the reality of, hey, maybe the supposedly virtuous things you grew up with are not necessarily that virtuous. If they are virtuous, they're couched in a circumstantial virtuousness. It's a luxury virtue. You have your point of view because you never ran out of food, right? You guys were able to share everything because you had enough to share. He went on to declare that the series follows, quote, her collision with the hard reality of other people's experiences and what happened to the people who, frankly, were left behind, left to die. Now, on its face, this seems like it could be something interesting, especially if Lucy does indeed have this kind of fake virtue, and the virtues that she's actually expressing aren't really that legitimate. And she's being confronted with the cold, hard reality of the world that she is now living in. And that could actually be interesting. My guess, though, is that's not what they're going to do. She's actually going to be having legitimate virtues. They're going to be true and real. And she's going to be hit with this quote unquote reality. And she's going to abandon those virtues and her morality because she is running out of food. And I'm kind of sick of this kind of way that they depict this stuff. We have so many examples of actual historical figures that disprove this idea that people will indeed stick to their virtues and their morals, even if they are in extreme suffering, such as someone who is starving. So I'm tired of getting characters that do this. I want to see people that actually do indeed stick to their principles and virtues and don't kind of have this I'm willing to sacrifice what my principles and virtues are for some kind of material gain, regardless of whether or not you're starving at that point. To this point, while describing the character of Maximus, who is a squire in the Brotherhood of Steel, Nolan says, one of the things we're trying to gently sidestep here is that kind of binary thinking, like they're the good guys or the bad guys. Whoever the good guys and the bad guys were, they destroyed the whole world. So now we're in a much more gray area. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You would still have right and wrong, even in a post-apocalyptic world. There would still be people that are doing the right thing, still be people choosing the wrong thing. Again, right and wrong would still exist. Just because you're in a post-apocalyptic world does not mean that that morality all of a sudden disappears. It's an utterly ridiculous notion. As for the Brotherhood of Steel, Nolan described them as, quote, a little bit of the Marine Corps. It's a little bit of the Knights Templar. It's this kind of weird fusion. He then added they're a mutated version of patriotism, religion, loyalty, and fraternity. I don't think it's very hard to see how that would be incorporated into the social commentary he previously promised. It's not hard to kind of transpose a certain political movement in the United States onto the Brotherhood of Steel. My guess is that people will probably be rooting for the Brotherhood of Steel, much like they cheered and rooted for Rorschach in the Watchmen graphic novel and Zack Snyder film, to the detriment of Alan Moore. Todd Howard, the director of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and currently the executive producer of Bethesda Game Studios, the developer of the Fallout series, confirmed the series would also be in canon with the games. He says, "We view what's happening in the show as canon. That's what's great when someone else looks at your work and then translates it in some fashion." So that's interesting. It will indeed be in canon with the game. So I'm sure that kind of creates all kinds of problems with the show. We'll see if they actually stay true to the video games canon. That's a big ask, especially for modern Hollywood, where we know that they can't stay true to any kind of canon whatsoever, even to their own canon in their own films that they are creating. One only needs to look at what Lucasfilm has created for their Disney Plus shows, Ahsoka being the most recent. In fact, the show will reportedly provide an origin for the iconic Vault Boy logo. Howard described this origin as, quote, really smart. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think the Vault Boy should be getting an origin. You should kind of just leave that a mystery. You don't need to know that. But it's Hollywood. They always got to give everything an origin, right? He also noted that he was jealous of a number of ideas that the series came up with, telling Vanity Fair, I sort of looked at it like, why didn't we do that? Again, believe it if I see it. So not only is the story in canon, but it is not an adaptation of any of the games, but an original story. Howard said, I did not want to do an interpretation of the existing story we did. That was the other thing. A lot of pitches were, this is the movie of Fallout 3. I was like, yeah, we told that story. I don't have a lot of interest seeing those translated. I was interested in someone telling a unique Fallout story. Treat it like a game. It gives the creators of the series their own playground to play in. I actually agree with this. I think that you shouldn't be doing adaptations of the video game. Rather, just create your own kind of Fallout story. If I want to play Fallout 3, I'll play Fallout 3. I don't need to see it on the TV screen. And usually the original property is always better than whatever the adaptation is. So I think this is the right idea, actually trying to do something original rather than just remaking Fallout 3 for television. However, as to how they crafted this original story, Nolan and Joy tapped Captain Marvel co-writer Geneva Robertson Dworet. Massive, massive red flag. Captain Marvel was kind of the bellwether for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It showed that it had become captured by the feminist ideology and became what we now know as the MCU rather than the MCU. That was kind of the movie where it all went downhill. And then joining her as a showrunner on the show is Portlandia writer Graham Wagner. I'm not really familiar with Wagner's work, but I do know from what I've heard about Portlandia is the show is pretty woke. So not a very good combination there. Massive, massive red flags. As for what the story is about, Nolan detailed that a number of factions within the show are chasing an artifact that has the potential to radically change the power dynamic in this world. So clearly this probably has something to do with the Brotherhood of Steel, how they are going to be a political commentary on real world America, and how the power dynamic in Fallout will reflect whatever power dynamic they want to see happening here in the real world. Again, another big red flag. Now, that's obviously an assumption that I'm making, but I think from what we've seen with a lot of these Prime Video shows, with a lot about what modern Hollywood is churning out, I think it's a safe assumption to make, and it's on them to truly try and change expectations. But it doesn't look like he's really changing those expectations. He's just kind of doubling down on what we already expect, and what we expect is kind of just an utter woke social commentary disaster, and that looks like what we are indeed going to get from this Fallout show. But those are my opinions. Let me know what you think of what Jonathan Nolan had to say here and what you make of kind of these first look images. I think the images look pretty good. Ella Purnell does indeed look like a vault dweller. I think the power suits look pretty solid, which is a good sign if they indeed do the Warhammer 40,000 stuff with Henry Cavill. So it does look pretty good. Even here, the world looks like lived in. It looks like Fallout, which you expect from the video game. But as far as the story that Jonathan Nolan is promising us, it does not look good at all. So again, what do you guys make of all of this? Let me know in the comments below.